Alright, so the last section that we're going to cover here in the system settings is this administration part at the bottom here. Actually, we've already covered most of these in earlier videos when we were talking about the welcome screen. So sections like the driver manager and the firewall, we've already talked about those back in the early videos. If you missed those, go ahead and check the playlist down in the description, and it will give you info on those. We also briefly went over the NVIDIA settings when I showed you about the OBS recording screen tearing issue that I had mentioned. One way to fix that, and that's in this NVIDIA settings section here. So let's briefly look at these other sections here, starting with the login window. And this one, since it is system sensitive, it wants a password. So go ahead and type yours in and hit authenticate when you are ready. Alright, so from the login window, you can see here, you can change the appearance of it, the background color. You can stretch the background across multiple monitors. So if you have, multiple displays hooked up, and you want one image to, span across all the monitors, you can do that with that option there. You can draw user backgrounds, and that's on by default. And that'll just, what does that say? It says when a user is selected, show that user's background. Okay, so if you have multiple users logging into your computer, you can customize the background per user. And it says draw a grid. It says draw a grid of white dots on top of the background. If you'd like to enable that, you can, but it's off by default. So this is actually talking about the login window. So it's talking about like when your screensaver shows up and you go to log back in. This is what it's talking about. So you can change the background color. You can change the image itself to something else if you'd like. You can customize all that in here. And by default, I believe, I want to say that what Linux Mint does is it will coordinate it to what your current desktop background image is. I believe that's how that works anyway. I know for sure when you're using the slideshow feature for your background and you have multiple pictures and things like that, it will do that. When you go to the screensaver, it will just show whatever image is currently as your background on the desktop as the background of your screensaver section too. So that will change periodically and things like that, right along with your desktop background, which I think is pretty cool. But if you wanted to change the theme specifically down here, just like we were looking at themes earlier in this system settings, if you want to change the theme just for the login window, you're able to do that separately from from the theme that's used in the rest of your operating system experience. So you could also just leave it at the default, and that's fine too. It's up to you. And then it says optional pictures from other monitors, or at the bottom left of the screen you can add additional pictures there if you'd like. I've never messed with those settings myself, but that might be something to try sometime if you want to add even more pictures to your login experience, things like that. The user tab here, it says user list, and all of these say with an asterisk at the end, and it says these settings require a computer reboot to take effect. So if you want to modify anything on this tab, basically, except then it's going to require you to restart the computer before it will go into effect. So you can allow a manual login, which is adds an option in the login window to enter a username. So if you don't want to just pick a user from a box and you want to actually type out the username, you can do it that way. It says hide the user list. It says hide the list of users in the login window. So you would probably use those two in conjunction, I would imagine. Like hide the user list and then allow manual login would make it so you just have to type in your username all the time and you couldn't see what other users were visible on the system from the login window. So that to me that would make sense anyway, using them both, but you could do it one way or the other if you prefer. Guest session, it says allow guest sessions. By default they're not allowed, but it says allow guests to use the computer without a password. A temporary guest account is created automatically when they log in. So this could be useful in a variety of situations, especially if you have folks who will frequently want to use your computer for short temporary purposes or those sorts of things, and they don't need their own full user account on there for frequent use or whatever. that may be something you want to enable and set up for them, so they can just quickly get into their own version of, a user space basically, and they won't have access to all of your, settings or necessarily to mess all that stuff up or, modify it or whatever. And they can just do what they need to do and go about their business, and it's all on a guest session thing. So, and it's all, created temporarily, and then, probably discarded either like I'm guessing when the computer reboots or something like that. So, and then if you want to enable automatic login, you can. As these settings require a computer reboot to take effect, just like all the rest of these. So, if you want to automatically log in every time, you just type in the username for which one you want to automatically log in, and it says, warning, automatic login will fail if the user's home directory is encrypted. So if you chose that's good to know actually, if you chose the option to encrypt your home directory when you installed Linux, then it will not work for automatic login. So it's a delay before connection in seconds. It says if this option is set, the login screen will be shown for this many seconds before the automatic login occurs. Any user activity will cancel the countdown. So if you needed to have a buffer period to potentially perform other actions, you can to delay the automatic login. You can set that there. Settings tab over here on the side. It says activate number lock, and it says please install numlock X to use this option. So you actually have to install another package before you can even use this one. To activate the number lock to make it usable on the login window only is all it's talking about. So and I'm not sure why that's so I'm not sure why that's such a thing where you have to install something completely different that isn't there by default. I'm not sure what the reasoning is there, but you can do that if you needed to, I suppose. And it says enable high DPI support, and it's set to auto. And the monitor choice, it says choose which monitor should display the login window, or select auto if you want it to follow the mouse. So if you need either one of those two to be something else, you can do that. It says support for high pixel density and retina displays is the high DPI. So that's if you have like monitors that can support really high resolutions and as it says pixel density. So your retina display, if you happen to be running Linux on a really expensive MacBook or something, which I'm sure there are some people that do that, but so you could do that, and that's how you change that there. Otherwise, you can just leave it to auto, and it will figure that out automatically for you. And so panel indicators. So this is just showing things that show up. So it shows the computer host name in the panel. Accessibility options, so it shows a little button that you can click to access some accessibility options if you need high contrast or the on-screen keyboard or whatever else. It'll show your battery power and in the on the panel that shows up in the login window. It says on laptop shows the battery power in the panel. Keyboard layout, so in case you needed to change the keyboard layout, it gives you an option for that. And by default, all these are selected to be on, so they will all show up. The quit menu, and this one's really helpful actually, is it shows the quit menu in the panel. For a long time, I didn't actually know you could do this from the screensaver, from the login window, but there is a power button that shows up in the corner, and you can use that to actually shut down or restart the computer without even logging into it. And that has been helpful for me personally on quite a few occasions. So. And the clock here, you can show whether or not to show the clock in the panel, and then if you do have the clock shown, it just shows the format of the clock, and it says %hours by %minutes. So it's like a wild card basically. It says C for more information on formatting. So but you can just leave the formatting to the default if you want, and it will show hours and minutes, just like the normal clock pretty much. So that's pretty much all for the login window settings. If you enjoyed this video and you want to learn even more, you can find my books at books2read.com/Jonathan. That's books, the number 2, read.com/JONATHAN. Nathan.